Okay, so so when we think about the measurement, as Kevin, sure, okay, thank you. So, so trying to take the baton from Kevin, so we would like to recommend a smartphone and a smartwatch. So, what a smartphone has a display that can be used to collect self-report, that can be used to engage the user, so interact with the user. And then it has wireless radios, so it can use the wireless radio to collect data from any of the other devices that are in the surrounding. When it comes to continuous data collection, the most prominent sensor I would say is the GPS, which can inform both the places that a person visits, as well as transportation modalities. You can do things like you can infer when the person had a hard braking while driving. So when it comes to movement, you can get a lot from GPS data. When it comes to physiology, it's a little bit harder. So we can get intermittent physiology if we ask a person to press their finger or point the camera to their face. But if we want to get continuous physiology, a smartphone does not touch the body. And hence the recommendation to use the smartwatch. A smartwatch is one device, we are used to wearing watches. So the smartwatch as envisioned here is the one that will be in continuous contact or proximity to the human body at the wrist level. Second, so it has the second that it can measure the motion of the arms by inertial sensing. So it can inform on broad activities, inform on sleep. It can also capture eating or smoking behavior if it's worn on the dominant hand. Third, this will be exposed to the ambience of the person. So if we have one platform that everyone wears that is exposed to the ambience, we have an opportunity to do environmental sensing if we can integrate environmental sensors into it. Fourth, if it has a display, a small display, and that can be used to interact with the person, we can have a much more frequent engagement with the participant because they are much more likely to see the display of the smartwatch than to take out the phone from the pocket or the purse. So then yesterday there was a question about adherence, right? Will all the participants be willing to engage with us? So I would like to throw a term, habit computing. So several years ago, none of us were in the habit of carrying smartphones with us or mobile phones with us every day when we went to work or when we went out. Now we are in that habit. So if we can tap into the habit of our participants and whatever we introduce, make that part of the habit of participants, we have much better chance of getting adherence rather than relying on people to do something intermittently as part of this cohort. So next, I would like to emphasize the benefit or opportunity we have if we can get to continuous measurement from these mobile sensors in this entire population. So it can improve the precision, temporal precision in the precision medicine. So how? Let me illustrate by one example, borrowing from Eric Topol's recent paper on individualized medicine. So, but the whole genome sequencing combined with microbiome and protein analysis can narrow down the risk or point to a risk for hypertension. If we can also monitor their physiology on a continuous basis, their cardiovascular symptoms, then we might have an opportunity to detect or diagnose at the earliest possible time and avoid any damage or irreparable damage to the kidney or to the heart. So in general, so yesterday I think Mark Williams had asked about, could we use mobile health to also measure the outcomes? And I believe that mobile health can offer us great opportunities. It can offer us an opportunity to do early detection, timely detection. It can also provide measurements to inform the treatment. Then sometime in the future, I would also expect it to help us do prediction that moves precision medicine not only from the treatment to prevention, and truly get us closer to the preventive medicine. And finally, by capturing the response to treatments and capturing the ambience and the lifestyle behavior of the person, we also will have an opportunity to adapt the treatment during its course by using these measurements. So next, I would like to talk about each of these three opportunities: the measurement, prediction, and engagement, and the treatment response. So first, I would like to divide the measurement into two parts. One is the data collection, the second is interpretation. So when we think about deploying these technologies, we can first focus on the data collection. So when do we say that tech is ready, and what are the challenges in having a reliable data collection? So first is the sensor design itself. So the sensor that we design must be wearable, hence the recommendation of having a smartphone and a smartwatch, because this we believe people would like to wear on a daily basis. Then it should be safe, that it should not do harm, like irritation of the skin, when wearing a smartwatch. Third, the data that comes out of it should be reliable. That means that there should be repeatability. If we wear the same device every day in the same situation, we should get the same data. Next is, it should have robustness. If the smartphone is in the pocket or in the purse, it should still get GPS reasonably well, as opposed to when it is put on the dashboard of the car. Next, it should also be versatile. So we would love for a person to wear sensor at every part of the body, to wear an EEG on the head, to wear two smartwatches, to wear wrist accelerometers on the ankle, and then we can characterize the person extremely well. So, but we can't expect each of us to be a walking sensor. So that means we also should look for versatility. That means a sensor whose measurements can be used to inform a variety of different behaviors. And so that's what I mean by versatility. So next, if we got the right sensors, then there is software and platform associated with it. And there are several properties we would look for in the platform. So first, if we had the right sampling rate, if we have the accelerometers and gyroscope, which can be used for fall detection, which can be used for movement and physical activity, if we were sampling it at the right rate, say 100 hertz, 100 times every second, or GPS every second, then even if we had the perfect algorithm to make perfect fall detection, we could apply that to the data we collected 10 years ago. So what's important is that we get the right sensor data when we are thinking about data collection. The software that's going to collect the data and store the data, that should be reliable. It should not fail often. Otherwise, people are going to be frustrated and not use it. The communication should be secure and not lossy. That means data should not be lost in wireless communication, and it should be trustable. The battery life, if we need to charge the battery every 4 hours, none of us are going to use it. So it's important that the battery life should be sufficient, at least throughout the entire day. And then the data that we are going to store, it should be stored reliably, and we should not lose data while storage. Next, if we did collect the right data, then we can do interpretation on it. Not right away, in real time, as we are collecting the data, later on as well. So when we think about interpretation, I would just point to a few challenges. So I was talking about detection of eating while using the accelerometry and gyroscope on the wrist. So we could do that, but it's important that when we develop those interpretations or those inference of behaviors from the sensor data, that we are able to deal with confounders. We could do the similar arm movement while we are talking, while we are smoking, and it's important to distinguish them. Then there is significant variability in the situations. That means between persons, and for the same person, different situations. If we are talking about detecting eating using wrist sensors, then if we are eating with the fork, it will be a different movement. If we're eating by hand, it will be a different movement. If we're eating if we're eating a burger, it might be different. If we are eating a watermelon, it might be different. And then if different people are using a chopstick, it will be different. And different people eat differently. So interpretation of the data does take lot more thought, and it is a continuously evolving process. So, but the good news is that there is an entire community of researchers who are working towards it, and this work can only progress further. So there are challenges, but but also that there are opportunities and efforts like our mobile sensor data to knowledge, funded by the Big Data to Knowledge Initiative, and several other efforts are making good progress in this direction. So when we talk about prediction of adverse events, I just want to emphasize the personalization in that precision medicine. When we visit an Amazon web page, each of us get a web page that is personalized to us. It's not the same web page. It depends what we prefer, and so it's called recommender system. I believe when we think about the prediction, when we think about prediction, like say trying to prevent fall, then there are different situations that a person is susceptible to, and therefore when we think about fall prevention, it's not one size fits all, and we should leverage those recommender systems on those personalization advances. Next, when we talk, so there was a lot of discussion yesterday that we can use mobile technology to engage the user. So when we think about engaging the user, there are several issues to consider. So first, we can capture the treatment response from the user. So if we are thinking of capturing the treatment response via self-report, then we must ensure that when we engage the user, that the user is available to be engaged. That means they are not busy, or they are not on the phone, and we are trying to beep them. And if we are thinking about engaging them, we have several modalities to engage them. And at different points in time, there may be different sources that may work best, and that could also be worked on further. So finally, I would like to talk about the evaluation and when should we consider the tech ready for deployment in this data collection. So I was talking to Bikram Bajaj from Google yesterday, and they have this 10,000 person cohort, and so they are using mobile technology. I asked them, what process do they use? So they use a 4-step process. So first, the sensor, so again, as I said, it's the data collection that must be ready for deployment. So, what they use is, the sensor goes through a bench test, that the sensor provides reliable measurements. Second, that it's tested in the lab situation under a variety of different circumstances to make sure that it captures, it works for different people under different circumstances. Third is that it's tested on a small cohort of 100 people who wear it in the field environment, and responses from that is used to further refine, validate the technology, and then it is deployed in the entire population. I believe we could follow the same 4-step process in this as well. Next is that there will be continuous improvement of the data interpretation, and also as we understand more from this entire population, which will be going to provide a lot more diversity in terms of context and in terms of people, that we capture the failure points in this technology throughout by having appropriate logging system, and that could be used to further refine it. But before we deploy any improvement, like we get software updates on our devices, on computing devices, we have that opportunity to continuously improve, but I would encourage that we continue to follow the same 4-step process before any of the improvements are rolled out into the entire cohort. And finally, I'll say that all of this data will be a lot of data. It will present a lot more data analytic challenges, but thanks to the Big Data to Knowledge Initiative and others to come, we believe we'll be ready to analyze this data, this entire huge data stream, and leverage on this to deliver precision medicine. Thank you.